Welcome back to another edition of the Hang Time Podcast. Your main man, Sekou Smith in Atlanta. John Schumann himself in New Jersey. John Hawks behind the glass, making it all happen. We are here to break down not only the goings-on on Wednesday night, briefly here, but also we're going to take a deep dive this week on the Milwaukee Bucks. Happy birthday, Giannis Antetokounmpo. All of 24 years old and making noise like nobody's business in the NBA. Shoot, Wednesday night was nothing short of spectacular around the NBA. The Sixers and Raptors went at it, with the Raptors winning 113-102. Kawhi Leonard once again in a marquee matchup, showing that he is the difference for the Toronto Raptors. LeBron James scores 20 of his 42 points in the fourth quarter to lead the Lakers past the Spurs, who are now in 14th place with a record of 11-14. That playoff streak shoot is on shaky ground.
Yeah, we're gonna have to have a Spurs discussion at some point in the next couple of weeks.
Are you ready to write the eulogy already?
I'm ready. I'm ready. I've got the playoff streak numbers down, ready to put that thing to bed.
You're a cruel man, John Schumann. Paul George, I'm ready to start the argument. Who's the real MVP in Oklahoma City? Mr. Triple-Double, Russ Westbrook. He's up to third on the all-time list, passing your boy Jason Kidd with his 108th career triple-double in the win over Brooklyn. But it was Paul George. Took the pass from Russ with 3 seconds left to seal the game with a huge three-pointer. PG went off 25 points in the fourth quarter, a franchise record for points in a quarter for the Oklahoma City Thunder to get that win. And
Poor Nets. I mean, they are just –
their end-of-game execution has been deplorable.
They have two of the three just most brutal last-minute meltdowns of this season, and that doesn't include them losing a 23-point lead and then getting beat by Paul George in the final seconds last night. So.
It's just brutal. I mean, I don't even know how you console Kenny Atkinson after some of these losses. How do you explain it? You got a number 2 pick in a draft sitting over there who you can't trust, at crunch time. I thought that was a horrible shot. D'Angelo Russell chucked up.
He had to wait like 5. He could have waited 5 or 6 more seconds to put up the same exact shot, and then they give OKC less time to work with. And then I mean, Paul George slipping that screen for Westbrook is fairly elementary stuff at this point, and you can't. It's just the communication between the two guys guarding those two guys was just poor. And he had time to catch, put down like a rhythm dribble.
I mean, that was textbook stuff. First time Paul George has nailed that shot in that scenario after, what was he, 0-14, 0-15 in his career, something like that?
Good for Billy Donovan, who called timeout with Westbrook getting like a live rebound and 8 seconds left. Donovan called timeout, and we're like, uh-oh, he just gave up, he just punted on a Westbrook in the open court situation, but he drew up a play that obviously worked to perfection.
Yeah, so, I mean, again, the Wednesday night action in the NBA this season has been outlandish, and this was no difference. The Bucks stormed past the Pistons, got a big win with Eric Bledsoe leading the way with 27 points. They're now 16-7, second best record in the East after being at the top of the Eastern Conference standings for a long stretch. Giannis has been at the top of the key race to the MVP ladder for the last month. Is this, and as I mentioned, it's his birthday. He's all of 24. Is this sustainable? Not only his performance, but the Bucks being one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the Eastern Conference all year?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think Boston's going to, put themselves back in that conversation. And so I think it's a 4-team grouping right now. And I think before the season, we put Boston, Toronto, and Philadelphia up ahead of everybody else. But I think the Bucks have joined that group and are part of that group at this point, and I think we can include them in that conversation. And I can't wait for the Eastern Conference semifinals. If that's the group and everybody's healthy, I think that's going to be
a nice Final Four. It'll be some head knocking for sure.
I cannot wait for that. And we still got a long way to go, but it's nice to be able to anticipate that kind of a scenario in the Eastern Conference, even though once you get below those 4 teams, teams are hurting.
Yeah, you're not feeling good about the rest of the field in the Eastern Conference?
I got a peek at the Wizards on Monday against the Knicks, and they've won. I think they've won. I'm not sure. They won three straight. Hold on, let me check my standings.
You don't have to. You don't need many fingers for how many they've won.
They won three straight, but it's like they beat the Nets, they beat the Knicks, and they beat another bad team last night, Wednesday night. And that Knicks game was exactly. It was like they played 20 minutes of good basketball and they got away with it. Like they were down double digits late in the second quarter. They had a really good third quarter. They played well for the first half of the fourth quarter, got up 16, and then they almost blew that lead. So I was like, wow, they just literally they got away with playing 20 minutes of decent basketball against bad, and that's basically been the same scenario basically against Brooklyn and last night they beat Atlanta. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I'll have I went to shoot around, by the way, and got a chance to talk to Scott Brooks briefly. They were bopping around like a team that had no idea how bad they are at shoot around. So I was wondering what was different, and then I noticed John Wall wasn't there, and then we found out later, obviously, that he wasn't going to play. Shu, what is it about them when John Wall's not around that everybody else seems to feel so free? And I don't know if it's just coincidental or what, but I mean, I'm not pointing fingers at Wall, but I mean, they talked about it last season that everybody, quote, everybody eats when John Wall isn't around and how different the flow is. Is it that simple?
I'm not going to speculate on the sort of chemistry part of that. I will say that watching them against the Knicks, I was impressed with Satoransky. I mean, he barely scored any points, but his effort was, much better than anybody else on that roster. Like he was just playing hard. And I think he was like a plus 15 in that game, a team best plus 15 in that game against the Knicks. That guy played, I mean, and they, they're starting him at small forward now, basically. And I think he makes things work with that team. He plays hard, does sort of the right things, doesn't have the talent, obviously, as their top two or three guys. But, just like next time you watch the Wizards, just keep an eye on Satoransky and how much an impact he can make without even having the ball in his hands all that much.
He kind of had that effect last season, didn't he, during the stretch where he was kind of pressed into service and, and played really well, and people kind of, opened some eyes, and people were saying, man, like in a pinch, Satoransky is exactly what the Wizards needed.
I tweeted out that John Wall defensive possession on Monday.
Yeah,
got a little bit of viral buzz, but
that was one of your famous plus minus tweets, and that one was definitely a minus.
Yeah, I got to be more careful about how negative I've been lately, but. But Wall had a terrific second half offensively, and even like the first possession of the third quarter, it's almost like somebody showed him that at halftime. And in the first possession of the third quarter, he came out and was active in an on the ball sort of defensive situation. So
right,
it comes and goes, and obviously he has an incredible amount of talent and can make an impact offensively. I still think he's one of the best passers in the NBA. But at this point, this team shouldn't have effort that comes and goes. It's got to be more consistent. And when they play tougher teams, what has passed over the last few games is not going to, be enough.
They're too much of a veteran crew to have though. I mean, I watched that cut that you put on Twitter, and it was bad. Because it wasn't just a lack of effort; it was like a supreme lack of effort coupled with absolutely no awareness.
Well, yeah, people compared it to that Otto Porter play from several years ago, where he totally spaced out. Right. But then once he realized that he spaced out and realized where his guy was, he sprinted to the other side of the floor, right, to go find him. Wall just sort of stood there and never moved. And
he did the LeBron Matador defense thing.
He knew it was his man shooting the ball in the other corner, but just
still didn't care.
He was like, all right, whatever. I guess I messed, just – all right, our ball now, that type of thing. And at least, Porter, once he realized that, he just blanked out. And then once he realized what was going on, he showed some effort on that play.
I'm not sure. Again, we've already kind of done the autopsy on the early season Wizards. I don't know how many more ways we can say it. If your best, quote unquote, best player has the issues that John Wall seems to have sometimes with focusing and just locking in and being at his best. How do you expect the rest of those guys to circumvent that? I mean, they can't. Yeah, I don't feel like there's somebody who's going to buck the order in that locker room and challenge John Wall in the way that he maybe needs to be for them to get right. And maybe that's going to be ultimately going to be the thing that takes him down, is that they just don't have somebody willing to go at John Wall the way you need to. Wall and Beal, to me, have done a great job taking care of their relationship and making sure that they have the right kind of, give and take. But you almost need Beal to challenge John Wall for that locker room, to me, in order for there to be a change.
Possible. I mean, we saw with the Fred Hoiberg firing how, some of the issues were that, he wasn't fiery enough to hold guys accountable.
True. We said it was Giannis's birthday, Shu. So what better time than to check in on the Bucks, get kind of a nice early season. We're not doing an autopsy on the Bucks because I think they're going to be around. We don't have to worry about cutting them all the way open. But Matt Velasquez of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel joining us on the Hang Time podcast today to talk Bucks, to talk Giannis and everything that's going on up there. Fear the Deer. John Hartzell is all too happy to hear about his Bucks on the podcast. Matt, how you doing, man? And are you getting any rest early season covering a team that's keeping the headlines going the way the Bucks have?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. The Bucks have they've been treating me okay so far. I think they've been getting some headlines and doing some different things. Obviously, after a really good start to the season, I think things will get a little bit crazier when the schedule starts to kind of pick up for them. They've already had a tough schedule, but they've had a lot of games at home, so that's been nice for sleeping in your own bed.
I'm going to start with the strange news first. What's going on with Chris Middleton and Bud? Like, is this a thing where Bud is trying to get under his skin in a good way and kind of massage him into playing defense the way he wants? Or is this a deal where they're not seeing eye to eye and maybe need to have a meeting of the minds right quick to make sure they get on the same page?
Yeah, I think it was more of a one-time situation on Saturday where, you can watch the game again and you can easily pick out a handful of plays where Middleton just wasn't given the requisite intensity, especially on defense, going lazily for rebounds and, not closing out, not getting back as quickly as he needed to, not communicating defensive assignments, all things like that. I don't think it's like an endemic problem. They sat down together and watched film and talked it out on Monday. Everything seemed to be fine. Everything was, totally solved. And then the team was surprised by, the finding out, Bud didn't find out till 90 minutes or 80 minutes before the game on Wednesday, that Middleton wouldn't be with the team due to a personal situation for Wednesday's night game against the Pistons. So, I mean, if Saturday hadn't have happened, I don't think there'd be any issues with him missing the game last night, or if he missed the game at a different time this season, I don't think there'd be any issues. But in talking to people, kind of around the team, it's not something that's at all linked to what happened on Saturday, and everything is fine basketball-wise. Just like he had a personal situation that came up and needed to attend to.
Matt, what do you think is making Eric Bledsoe, or why is he having his sort of best season or a much better season with the Bucks than he did last year, and especially after a sort of a rough playoff performance? What's gotten into him?
I think every time we've talked to Eric this season and asked him about differences and changes and kind of what's going right for him, his answer is usually just, it's Bud. He says that, Bud, the way that he coaches and the way that he kind of schemes, Eric really kind of took to all of that. He likes the freedom that he has and the trust that the team has in him running the point, especially at the end of games, where he can go out there and just do what he does best, which is, attack the rim, kick out to shooters, just make plays. And this year, one thing that's been, noticeably different, especially on offense, is that he's mostly cut out the mid-range shot from his shot profile, which last year I know there were a lot of people scratching their heads over the number of, kind of random mid-range twos he would take instead of driving all the way to the hoop or, staying out around the 3-point line. It seems like he's found his sweet spots kind of around the, around the break or on the wing for 3-pointers. His layups have, continued to be a dominant part of his game. And the team has really just kind of put the ball in his hands and trusted him. And so when he's given that freedom and he's given the challenge, because he's said a few times in the past that he likes to be challenged, he likes to be pushed. And so giving him the responsibility on defense to, defend the team's best guard or most athletic guard, he will kind of, he likes to rise to that challenge. So I think he's just locked in. I think he feels valued and well used on both ends of the court. And, it's really showing in his play.
Matt, when you're talking about this kind of change for a team where, they go in one off season from a team we're all wondering about, like, are they going to figure it out? Will it change and will they take that next step to, boom, they jump out early this season and look like a completely different group, playing a totally different way and an effective way around Giannis. Is it as simple as Mike Budenholzer putting a different set of eyeballs on their situation, tweaking some things and moving some things around? Or is this something maybe that's more deep-rooted? Is this about Giannis, his work ethic, and the kind of grind that you have to have internally in your locker room to get better?
I think it's a mix of both. I think that you see a lot of it is coming from the coaching change. I think everybody who's watched the Bucks over the past 2 years has thought, wow, this team has a lot of talent. Why aren't they better? They have all these long, athletic guys. Why is their defense so bad? They have a bunch of, shooters and guys who can, you can fit around Giannis. Maybe they didn't have enough shooters last year, and bringing in, the free agents they did, and Donte DiVincenzo as a rookie. Those guys who all of whom shoot threes. Maybe that's definitely been a big help. But they had the pieces. They had the skeleton of a team that should have been better. And so getting that new set of eyes in there and getting Budenholzer to install a system. I mean, those guys really kind of jumped on it early. I mean, starting from the summer where they got together as a team back in August for a week in New York, and then they were together a lot in Milwaukee before training camp, really trying to build on team's chemistry and start to, put into practice the stuff they were already starting to learn from Bud and his staff. And then you look at the way that having a new coaching staff, a new voice can affect you. I mean, I think Jason Kidd, he had their ear, that he had the team's ear for, at least the first year or two that he was there. But then over time, it just didn't catch the same way it had. And, people maybe didn't respond in the same way they had in the past. And so when you have a coach come in and Budenholzer has been really big on talking about building confidence and positivity. And yes, like there's got to be times where he has to, get on guys. But if you have the foundation of things coming from a place of positivity first and confidence building first, and players knowing that there's not a short leash, like that they can shoot open shots and not have to look to the bench and see if they're going to get pulled out. He's cool with them taking open shots, even if they miss, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a row. So there's just a different dynamic, different feel. And I think that, a lot of that is credit to Bud, and then obviously the players themselves deserve a lot of credit for the way that they've adapted to it. And you mentioned Giannis, his work ethic is something that, when you have a leader of a team and he's kind of setting the tone by being in the practice facility all the time, I think there's definitely a trickle-down effect.
Matt, is there any hope for the Thon Maker fans out there that he's going to take advantage of this new playing time with John Henson out for most of the season, I guess? Man, I was a Thon Maker fan. Was it the end of his rookie year? Kid just sort of threw him in the starting lineup, the second half of his rookie year, and the Bucks sort of took off. And then he had, I thought, some really good moments in the playoffs. And then ever since then, it's been a disappointment. But now this sort of this Henson injury provides him like another opportunity to do something. What's the sort of early returns on his getting back in the rotation?
Yeah, I was just talking about it yesterday, and obviously you were there for the playoff series against the Raptors, and it's just strange because Don always gets up for the playoffs. He always gets up for the Raptors, and then last night he had a pretty good game against the Pistons, and we were saying, well, maybe he just has a thing about Dwayne Casey. Like, who knows? but he's just been inconsistent. Like, he was supposed to take that step last year. Jason Kidd at the start of the year put him in the starting lineup to start the season. That lasted all of 8 games. And then he had kind of an up and down year for the rest of the year. He never really knew his role, and it really felt like, everything had clicked. And you would look at Mike Budenholzer's system and say, okay, high energy, high effort on defense. Not necessarily that you have to, like in kid system, we're trapping and running all over. But, he just wants you to be engaged on defense, which, Thon very much can be. And, spread the court for Giannis, shoot threes, do the little things. It's like, okay, those things should fit Thon Maker's situation. But he still has a little bit of that inconsistency to work out. I think sometimes he is too aggressive for the defensive scheme, and that can kind of put him and other guys out of position. He still obviously needs to get stronger and become a better rebounder, because if he's going to be the man in the middle for the Bucks, whether it's next to Giannis or as part of a bench unit or something, he's going to have to pull down rebounds. Last night against the Pistons, there was a little bit of him at the 4 next to Brook Lopez, just because they didn't have Henson. Ersan Ilyasova was out. Giannis needed a rest. They just don't have enough bodies in the front court to put out there, so they were trying some new and different lineups. But I think that there's still time for Thon. I think he shows in fits and spurts just how valuable he can be, either by shooting threes or by just bringing energy off the bench and making kind of winning plays either on the offensive or defensive end in key moments of games. But you'll have one game where he'll do all of that, and then the next game he'll get out of position on defense. He'll be kind of running around almost like a chicken with his head cut off, and not really be able to rein all of his kind of his excitement or passion. He can't rein it all in and make it work, and then he just doesn't get as many minutes. So the trick for him is finding that consistency and finding a way to be a regular contributor instead of somebody who has these kind of peaks and valleys.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still holding out hope, but the Bucks also have the Ilyasova at center option with their second unit. That if he doesn't have it, they can always just say, all right, they can give him like a 5-minute trial in the first half, and if he doesn't have it, then they can always go to the sort of Ilyasova at center or even Antetokounmpo at center.
And they've done that. Like they've given him the one run in the first half, usually in the second quarter, see what they're going to get. And then, Budenholzer might be like, all right, tonight's not a Thon night. Let me just go to Giannis or Ersan or whoever else at center with the second unit instead of, when Brook Lopez needs the time to rest. So, yeah, they've been trying that, and, he needs to earn those minutes in the second half of games.
My intensity level about Thon Maker has, ebbed and flowed. In the draft process, I was intrigued. I was like, man, he had kind of that urban legend feel to him. Then we get a chance to watch him, and you say, boy, you see the talent, the length, the athleticism, what he could be. Felt like he didn't reach the point that I thought he should or could under Kidd. Now it'll be interesting to see what Bud does with him. Another player, Matt, in a similar situation right now is Malcolm Brogdon. People, obviously were excited about him after a killer rookie year. What's his level of comfort in Bud's program right now, and is he in danger of being one of these guys who doesn't fall in line and take that next step under Bud?
Yeah, I think right now all signs are positive. Well, maybe not all signs, but most signs are positive. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's shooting the lights out from three, and I think that maybe he's a little bit more reticent to shoot than some other guys, but he's kind of warming up to the idea that he just needs to be willing and able to just throw up, catch and shoot threes when he is in rhythm and in the right spots, because he's shooting like 47% from three this season. I haven't checked the numbers recently after last game, but he's really high up there, and he's got a good shot, and the Bucks need him to provide that shot because it's a weapon. The issue for him has been kind of finding his spots for play creation, because he can be a dynamic force when it comes to attacking the hoop and exploiting teams off of pick and rolls and kind of just finishing at the rim. And when he's on and when he's doing that decisively, he's been very good. But when he's been holding the ball for longer, or when he's been dribbling a lot, it doesn't come off the same way. He needs to make those quick decisions. Otherwise, the offense kind of has had a trend maybe of stagnating with him. If he becomes a ball stopper and tries to kind of go on his own to make shots and make layups, it hasn't translated well. I think he's shooting like 25% on shots where he's dribbled 6 or more times or had the ball for 6 or more seconds. But outside of that, he has been lights out. So if he can kind of find his niche as kind of the second, usually on the second side, usually most of the action will be on the Giannis Bledsoe Middleton side, and he can kind of work from the backside. If he can get cuts to the hoop for easy baskets, or be able to catch and immediately 2 dribbles right to the hoop and go strong, that's really kind of the best version of him. And I think he is starting to realize that over the course of the season and has been a really valuable asset for the Bucks.
Yeah. Huge weekend coming up, Matt, obviously. The Warriors in town for a Friday night showcase game at Toronto on Sunday. Culturally, you got a new building, kind of a new energy with Bud there, the great start. How big a weekend is this for the Milwaukee Bucks this season in terms of making a statement, not to the rest of the league, but to themselves, maybe them understanding where they fit in the bigger picture around the league? Do these games mean as much to them as it seems they would, looking at it just on the schedule?
I think so. I think they recognize what the significance of this weekend is. Obviously, they've already played both these teams. They beat the Warriors in Oakland back in November, and they beat Toronto in late October. Of course, Giannis Antetokounmpo and Kawhi Leonard didn't play in that game, so that kind of throws off anything you want to take from that game. But I think they recognize just what the challenge is in front of them. They've been a team that's been really good about getting up for tough teams during the season, and they've been really good at bouncing back from losses. I mean, they're 7-0 coming off a loss with their win over Detroit on Wednesday night. So they've been really good about locking in for each game, and it's just been a different feel around the team because in the past you can maybe get like 2-3 losses in a row. You're like, okay, let's turn this around. And that immediately comes off of one loss, maybe a close game, and they're like, oh no, we definitely did not do what we need to do. We need to turn this around right now. And like they have that urgency about them. And Giannis has been pretty consistent in saying, hey, that's how great teams act. And we don't want to be a good team anymore. We want to be a great team. And so that's what we need to do. And so in order to be a great team, you also need to beat some great teams. And right now, Golden State and Toronto are 2 of the great teams in the league. And so getting a chance to play them on Friday and Sunday, I'd be very surprised if the Bucks weren't up and, focused for both of those games.
That's a good point. Matt, we don't let our guests get away from here without getting in the John Schuhmann torture chamber. He gives us a Schuhmann stat every week, a trivia question that I'm usually incapable of answering. Someone needs your help this week. Shu, what's the Schuhmann stat? And let's see if we can get Matt to step up to the plate and knock this thing out.
All right. So you guys know Giannis is averaging 18.6 points in the paint per game this season, which would be the most since Shaq averaged 19.6 in 2002-03, 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. Shaq, in fact, is the only player to have averaged at least 16 points in the paint per game in the 22 years for which we have, points in the paint, shot location, so we can determine points in the paint versus points versus outside the paint. Mm-hmm. So the question is, what 4 players in those 22 years have averaged at least 16 points from outside the paint in a single season?
Oh, boy.
Ooh.
From outside the paint.
From outside the paint. 16 points per game from outside the paint in a single season. 4 guys have done it in single seasons. One of those guys is doing it again this season.
Stephen Curry.
I was going to say, Steph Curry's got to be one.
I'm cheating. I knew Steph. Right. I'm getting that out the way. Matt, it's on you from here on out.
In 15-16, Curry averaged 17.4 points in the paint per outside the paint. That's the highest number in these years, except this year he's averaging 18.8 points from outside the paint per game. All right, 3 other guys, all of them no longer playing. All of them retired. 2 of them already in the Hall of Fame. 1 not yet because he's not yet eligible.
Kobe Bryant.
Kobe Bryant, correct. 2005-06, 17.
You got to be a gunner. And I don't mean that in a bad way. But you kind of, don't you, Matt? Don't you kind of have to be a gunner to average those?
Oh, yeah. You got to be someone who just shoots at will.
Yes, Kobe Bryant, 2005-06 did it.
All right.
Remember, this goes back to 96-97.
96-97. What about Allen Iverson?
Nope.
Dang it. All right.
This doesn't include free throws, too. So, like, Iverson
Right.
would get some his at
Okay.
Reggie Miller?
Nope.
Who else? You got to be a very specific kind of gunner to average those kind of numbers outside the paint. What about Kevin Durant?
Nope.
Dang it. All right. Shoot, you're good.
Two guys retired. Remember, I said they were both.
Oh, retired. That's right.
Both these guys are in the Hall of Fame. Kobe's retired.
On his way to the Hall of Fame, right? Okay.
And both these guys are in the Hall of Fame. One very recently, the other one several years ago was in the Hall of Fame.
What about Ray Allen?
Nope. He came close, 15.6 one year, 2005-06. All right, one guy did it in 96-97. So think who was a great player in 1996-97. He was more of a mid-range guy.
I was gonna say it wasn't the 3-point era.
I think turnarounds from the post. Come on.
In the Hall of Fame. Okay.
In the Hall of Fame, arguably the best player of all time.
Oh, Michael Jordan. What?
Michael Jordan, yes.
Are you serious?
Yeah, 16.8 points from outside the paint in 96-97.
Wow, I wouldn't have guessed Jordan.
Other guy led the league in
It's so obvious just to guess Jordan that it's
for
not
everything.
obvious.
Yeah. Just guess Jordan for every category.
The other guy led the league in scoring at least once. I don't think this was a year. This was not his highest scoring year, but this is 2003-04.
Mm-hmm.
Average 16.
Tracy McGrady?
Tracy McGrady, correct.
Yes.
We made it.
So Curry, Kobe, Michael Jordan, Tracy McGrady are your
Matt,
four
you see what I
guys.
go through? You see what I deal with around here, having to hang out with John Schumann on a regular basis?
That was fun.
It's hard.
That took a lot of digging, by the way. I'm glad we were able to get it in because I took took some work to put that one together. So
we appreciate it. Shu, as always, with the Schumann staff. Matt, by the way, we haven't had a chance to meet in person, man, but I've enjoyed your coverage. Great stuff on the Bucks and a super interesting season, I think, cooking up for them. Hopefully we'll get a chance to see you down the road and talk to you again. That team, I don't know, what Bud has in store for them going forward, but having watched Bud and what he can do with the right kind of talent, you're going to have a nice ride on your hands with that Bucks team in the next few seasons with Bud in control. I'm curious to see. There was so much chatter about Giannis and whether or not he would be long for Milwaukee. And it's funny to me how all of that has quieted down all of a sudden. Like, you don't hear that conversation at all anymore. He looks like the face of that franchise for years to come. So we'll enjoy watching you cover that and provide everybody with all that good insight on the Milwaukee Bucks. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the kind words, and I'd love to come back anytime.
Awesome. Matt Velasquez of the Milwaukee Journal and Sentinel join us here on the Hang Time Podcast. We're off on Monday. I'm on the road on a little secret assignment. But John Schumann's Power Rankings will still be on NBA.com bright and early as always. Make sure you check those out. Give him some grief about it. I don't know what his email address is, but you can always attack him on Twitter. We'll be back on Thursday for another deep dive on a different team around the league. And make sure you subscribe to Hang Time on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts for new episodes all season long. Don't forget to leave a comment, and we will see you right here next time on the Hang Time Podcast.